It's now time for Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. It began as a podcast, went live on the net, and transformed into a full-blown empire. Across the web, on Fight Now TV, and on radio stations around the world. It's the only daily boxing talk radio show on the planet, hosted by the only guy with the balls to do it. Many have stepped into the ring. Many have tried to take the belt. And one by one, they've fallen. Another victim of the undisputed heavyweight champion of boxing talk radio. Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. is on now.
My style is impetuous, my defense is impregnable, and I'm just ferocious. I want your heart.
We're coming to you live from the Billy C studio in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero. Time for Talking Boxing with Billy C. Good morning, good day, good evening, whenever you're listening. Hope you're doing all right. Got a busy show scheduled for today. And like we do every day, I guess, pretty much I say the same thing. You know, yeah, busy show. You know, well, we got full 2 hours. It's all coming up. Don't forget the show is being brought to you in part by Cat's Nationwide Luxury Transportation Service. If you're looking for a limousine and you're someplace in the United States of America, well, then you need to give my girl Cat a call, 202-351-7496. That's 202-351-7496. And just don't forget she's my girl. And speaking of Cat's Nationwide Luxury Transportation Service, she will be doing, or they will be doing, well, I know she personally will be coming up to do the Billy C Boxing Hall of Fame induction weekend this November 16th, 17th, and 18th, coming at us from Glens Falls, South Glens Falls. Got to give a shout out to all the WMML listeners right now. Finally got their new tower up, so now they can broadcast all the way to California, from what I understand. But don't forget to make your plans now. I know it seems like it's a long way away, November, especially since the weather, at least in these parts, are getting real nice, but make your plans now. It's going to be way bigger than it was last year, and we're hoping to break the record. Break the record and grow into something really nice for the area, and of course for the boxing fans, because hey, the whole premise of this is to give you 100% accessibility to the fighters and special guests and all of that, and that's what you get. For all the information about the event, check out the website www.billycboxing.com and click one of the Billy C. Boxing Hall of Fame banners, which are on the page. You can't miss it. The show is also being brought to you in part by Campanaro and Tomkovich. If you're looking for a lawyer, whether it be for matrimonial, maybe real estate, maybe a will because you don't know how to spell my name right, or you got a legal issue, man. You got some paperwork you need drawn up, or even a criminal issue. Been a bad boy or girl, then you need to give the lawyers that keep me out of trouble, Campanaro and Tomkovich, 845-221-4099, 845-221-4099. Tell them Billy C sent you, and tell them I said I'll pick up the consultation fee too. So, hey, what do you got to lose, man? You got a problem? Go call them, 845-221-4099. Let them knock out your legal problem. It's my invented line for them. And, of course, my friends over at the Halftime Bar and Grill, Route 9, South Glens Falls. If you're in the Glens Falls, South Glens Falls, Queensbury, Lake George areas, and you haven't checked out the Halftime, well, I don't know what the hell you're waiting for. Go down there, check it out, completely renovated, big screen TVs everywhere. And you can watch your favorite sporting event, hang out with some cool people. And if you're looking for drink specials, they always have something going on. And speaking of going on, every Friday night we're there, unless we're doing a broadcast someplace else. But then we pipe in our broadcast to the Halftime Bar and Grill. All you got to do is sit and talk boxing with me, and we will give you prizes and all that kind of stuff. I met some interesting people last time I was there, and I'm hoping to keep meeting people. We want you guys to come on out to the Hall of Fame, which we're going to have in November. So Halftime Bar and Grill, give them a call, 518-792-4869. That's 792-4869. Tell them Billy C sent you, and you'll get something for nothing. And also, don't forget, this weekend, we will be broadcasting live from Macon, Georgia, right in the middle of the Cherry Blossom Festival. The French Invasion, that's right, the French Invasion. Frank Hiroshi Horta is going up against Contender Series star Grady Brewer. That's the main event for the IBO Intercontinental Junior Middleweight Championship. And you can check it out right here on LDL TV. They're going to stream it on LDLTV.com as well as Ustream and all over the place. If you're looking to get the code to broadcast that event, drop me an email today because it's your last chance. So you got to do it today. Billy at Talkin' Boxing, TalkinBoxing.com. Don't forget, Chris Algieri returns to the Paramount Theater in Huntington, Long Island. So make sure you get tickets for that. You can do that by visiting our website and click the fight poster, www.billycboxing.com. And one more thing before we get into the emails. Don't forget, my friend Harold Letterman is being inducted into the New York State Boxing Hall of Fame. It's their first one, and it's taking place April 1st. It's Sunday, April 1st. Get tickets, man. Go support my man, Harold Letterman. I'm scheduled to be there. I do have a wrench in my plans, but I'm trying to make it all work. Harold Letterman would love the support from all of the Billy C listeners that can make it because he's very excited about this, and it means a lot to him, was his exact words. So I support Harold, and I hope you do too. You can get tickets by visiting the website for the event, www.ring8ny.com. That's ring the number 8ny.com. Tell them Billy C sent you, and you want a discount. It can't hurt. Can't hurt with that. All right. What we do, what we have been doing, and it's become very popular, is reading your emails and thoughts at the beginning of the show, which I'm going to do right now. I'm speaking about later on in the show, which I didn't speak about, but I will right now. Alex Pierpaoli is scheduled to join us. We're going to be talking about some stuff going on, some fights that took place last week, of course, some fights that are scheduled for this week. And then we're going to get into the blast from the past, which this week is on Randy Turpin. And we'll talk about him, beat the greatest fighter of all time. And Joe Santoliquito, that's right, the infamous Joe Santoliquito will be joining us later on as well. From my man Trojan Buster, that's what I always call him. It's actually Trojan Buzzer or whatever. I don't know, man. When you look at it quick, it's clearly an optical illusion, and it's Trojan Buster. The little guy wants us to know that, he says, people forget that Floyd isn't a businessman. He's a businessman. the way he wrote this is it looks like he's saying that Floyd isn't a man, but he's just a businessman. I don't get it. I don't get it. Like in the old movie, They Call Me Bruce. I don't get it, Schroeder Buster. He's I think he's a man, and I think he's a good businessman. So I'm not sure what you mean by that, but thanks for the email. Anyway, EQX has got several things to say, and one of them is DeBella needs to step up his game. Yeah, I agree with you, EQX, 100%. He also says, if there's random blood testing and urine testing, again, he's referring to Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather fight. He says, if there's random blood and urine testing, Manny will lose. So I guess EQS assumes that Manny's on the juice, and I'm not talking apple or orange. He also says, Billy, half of $100 million is $50 million. Floyd will do $50 million or better for the Cotto fight, as he did with the Ortiz fight. Why would Floyd make the biggest fight in history and make the same as he's been making in other fights? To make the fight, he has to take a 50-50 split. Come on, Billy. Then we could have said all Pac had to do was take a test if he wanted to fight. Pac's side is playing games. I mean, they contradict each other in the media. It's a joke. Again, the fight will not happen until Pac leaves Arum. Pac has never made $40 million for one fight and never will unless he fights Floyd. Floyd will make close to $50 million in any fight he makes. First of all, I agree with Manny Pacquiao and Bob Arum and Floyd Mayweather. If you're blanketing them all together, I agree that it is a joke that the media, he said, she said, and all of this. If the two fighters truly wanted to fight each other, they would both tell their respective people. And although Mayweather's his own promoter and doesn't really have a Bob Arum in his corner, he would tell whoever represents him or pick up the phone himself and say, I don't care, make the fight. Same with Manny. So I agree with that. All of the propaganda that we hear in the media is just that. It's BS. But as far as the money goes, I totally disagree because here's the situation. Let's be real about money here for a second. Floyd Mayweather, does not make $50 million every time he fights. All right, it doesn't happen. My point yesterday was that if he wants to make, and when I say $100 million, I'm predicting that they're each, now this is before everybody gets their piece of the pie, but grossing, each of them could make at close to $100 million each. I'm not talking about $100 million total. I'm talking about being able to make close to $100 million each. And let me give you a scenario about what Floyd Mayweather makes right now, based on just some numbers I'm going to toss around. Let's say we have a pay-per-view. And this isn't against Manny. This is Floyd against whoever he handpicks. The Floyd Mayweather Jr. sweepstakes. Whoever Mayweather picks, let's just say they're selling it for $50, the pay-per-view. And let's just say, for argument's sake, that they sell 1 million buys. 1 million buys. Now, that may be a stretch, especially with the internet and everything else. I mean, 1 million buys now is pretty tough to do. But let's give Floyd the benefit of the doubt. Let's say he sells 1 million buys against a handpicked opponent, whoever, all right? Cotto. Let's say Cotto. Let's say Ortiz. You mentioned Ortiz. Let's say Ortiz. So 1 million buys times $50 equals, come on, class, $50 million. Now, $50 million, that's not all Floyd's money. That's what the fight generated. That's number one. Number two, half of that goes for production and distribution fees to the cable networks and satellite dishes and all of that. So now you're left with $25 million, all right? So if you take 80% of that, because let's assume that Floyd gets 80%, he's the man. That's $20 million. 20% goes to his opponent. That's $5 million. That sounds about right, right? Okay. Now, we didn't factor in the live gate. A live gate, let's say, for argument's sake, it's a high live gate. Let's throw $4.5 million as a live gate, which I don't think is true, but let's just give it. We're arguing here. We're throwing make-up numbers, right? So that's $4.5 million, 4.5 million. 80% is roughly 3.6 million. 20% is roughly 900,000. So what that means is that Floyd Mayweather grosses about $24 million for a fight, and his opponent gets about $6 million before taxes, before they got to pay this and pay the whoever promoted it and other fees and stuff like that. So $24 million gross for Floyd before the tax man and all his expenses. So you're off, man, because he estimates, even he said that he estimates for a regular fight, maybe 10, 12 million he makes when all is said and done, which is fantastic. I applaud Floyd for being able to make that money. No other athlete can make that money for one night's work. However, if he fights Manny Pacquiao, regardless of the split, that 50 million gross for the pay-per-view has to go up. They have to do more than they would against Joe Schmo. It has to. So right off the bat, you got that. You also have off the bat the very most likely, it's probable that we get charged $79 or even $99 for that pay-per-view, which is going to, even if they had the same million buys, they're going to double that revenue. Same thing goes with the gate. They're going to escalate the ticket prices because of the demand, supply and demand rule, business 101. So my point is that he will make more money by fighting Manny Pacquiao at this stage of the game. End of story. But as a good businessman, I don't see a problem why he should fight a lesser opposition and be, clearing $10 million every time out. There's nothing wrong with that. I wish I could do that.
If you're in upstate New York and you need a trucking company, then you need Rosselli Enterprises. Rosselli Enterprises is trucking at its finest. They have it all. Dump trucks, dump trailers, walk-in floors, flatbeds, flow boys, tankers, loaders, and a full line of roll-off containers for any job, big or small. Rosselli Enterprises is also the source for all your sand, gravel, and topsoil needs. Visit them on the web at RosselliTrucking.com or call 315-433-5115. That's 315-433-5115 and tell them Billy C sent you.
Are you ready, America? Then let's get it on with Fight Now TV. It's time, fight fans. Your channel has arrived. All the fights, all the names, all the action. From world-class boxing events to mixed martial arts showdowns and other combat sports matchups, Fight Now TV delivers the hits and more. Call your television provider and tell them you want to get it on with Fight Now TV. For more details, go to fightnow.com.
We've got a great matchup tonight. Fighting out of the left corner is the #1 ranked contender.
No, he is not.
I'm sorry, but who are you?
I am the IBO computer. I am programmed to provide only fair and unbiased boxing rankings. This fighter is the number 15 ranked contender.
Fair and unbiased boxing rankings? That's a new concept.
Actually, it is not. The IBO has provided unbiased computerized rankings for many years.
Well, we've still got a great fight tonight, folks. In the left corner is the number 15 ranked contender.
The IBO, the champion of integrity. Learn more at iboboxing.com.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts. Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you. I hate you.
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning.
As a young boy, all Billy C dreamed about was one day having his own catchphrase.
And we're back. And we're back.
One boy, one dream, one day, everyone will say.
And we're back. 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 And we're back.
Catchphrase coming soon to a theater near you.
And we're back. You are listening to the Talking Boxing with Billy C radio show. You're watching us on LDL TV. Give a shout out to my good friend John and his staff. Does a fantastic job. You can catch John and his staff working feverishly in Macon, Georgia. I'm just wondering how many cherry blossoms we're going to have to walk over to get to the venue this week. Saturday, don't forget, It's starting at about 6:45 p.m. The broadcast goes live. I guess the first fights are going to come out at 7, and we're going to be coming at you, right here on LDL TV. So check it out. We're reading some emails, and Given Quality, my man Given Quality says, and this is a response to, of course, Mayweather and Pacquiao yesterday, and he says, I feel what makes him elite, because I got a little ticked at Given Quality yesterday when he refers to the O and stuff as being elite. He says, I feel what makes him elite is his skills, his talent, his preparation, his mental toughness, his dedication to always being in shape like a throwback boxer, no drugs, no alcohol, and the will to win no matter what the obstacle. He controls the fight, whether he's coming straight forward, running in circles around the opponent, or fighting moving backwards, or pinned against the ropes. He's the total package. He stays under control, doesn't panic and waste punches or his energy. His defense is masterful, and the O is just clear display of his dominance, which is icing on the cake. I agree with everything you said in terms of definition of elite. I can't argue with any of it. You know, I like the throwback. I like the drugs and alcohol thing that you constantly throw in here, and that is a very key point about Mayweather that I don't think he gets enough credit for. And I don't know if he gets enough credit for constantly staying in shape. I know that Given Quality has mentioned that a bunch of times. But you know, for the record, I hope that people do recognize that this is a guy that's in shape 12 months out of the year. You know, he's not one of these guys that, you know, only gets in shape for the fight and then, you know, goes and does his thing. You know, the argument that you're going to always get from me, Given Quality, and I think that you're always going to get from other fans, is that, you know, we don't know how great he could have been, because earlier in his career, he did seem, and I'm talking about earlier, the last several years, he did seem to duck some of the bigger names that people wanted him to fight. Now, before you get your tail feathers in a bunch here, you know, the thing is this. Today, I think when we fast forward and we look at it today, which we should really only look at what's going on today at this point, I don't know if he's ducking anybody. You know, people can argue about the Pacquiao thing, but, you know, whatever. But as far as fighting Cotto and prior to that, Victor Ortiz, he did answer critics by fighting the younger and bigger guys. So, you know, but again, you know, he's an elite fighter. He's arguably the top one or two fighters out there today. As far as going back 20 years, again, I disagree with you. You know, guys like Hagler and Hearns and you know, Roberto Duran and all those fighters, Sugar Ray Leonard, of that era of the 80s, would have given Floyd Mayweather all he could handle. And you know, it's hard, but all we could say is, hey, Floyd isn't fighting in the 80s, he's fighting now, and that's that. One of the reasons why Given Quality says here that he does not, you know, give Manny Pacquiao the elite status and says he's a B fighter, is because Morales is not elite, and Pac should have never lost to him regardless. This is the part that, you know, and something you said yesterday in your email had me all worked up during the day, and you know, you make it seem like Mayweather was always as good and, in your mind, unbeatable from the minute he put on a pair of gloves to now. And that's not true. He evolved into what he is today, just like every fighter evolves into their peak, and then, unfortunately, like every athlete, they go through a decline. Now, we haven't seen that yet with Floyd. That's a gimme. We may be seeing that with Manny Pacquiao. However, to say that Manny Pacquiao is not elite because Morales beat him, you know, I don't buy that, and I don't buy the fact that when a fighter loses, and I know you throw in that Pacquiao's not only lost, he's been knocked out, you know, that you have to contribute or attribute the training method, the learning factor in with fighters, and what makes them evolve into first a fighter, and then a good fighter, then a great fighter, elite fighter, whatever you want to use, whatever term you want to use. I think that you have to give Manny Pacquiao credit. He's gotten better over time. Yeah, it's not the same fighter when he fought Morales, but Floyd Mayweather isn't the same fighter when he fought Castillo. Castillo. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I know you're never going to think anything otherwise, but as far as top fighters today, I think Floyd is, the tops. All time, best of all time? No. I'm sorry. No. And I don't care if he finishes his career 60-0. I'll still say no. He would have never beaten a Sugar Ray Robinson. I don't even think he beats a Jake LaMotta, to tell you the truth. I know you disagree with me, but I think Jake LaMotta would have busted him up. Marvin Hagler would have busted him up. Tommy Hearns busted him up. Sugar Ray Leonard, too smart for Floyd. As smart as Floyd is, Sugar Ray Leonard was too smart for him. So that's what I think, and that's just my opinion. You can disagree with me all day long, but that's what makes boxing so great. It's very subjective, But anyway, and as far as Floyd totally staying under control and never losing his cool and all of that, I said it before, I'll say it again. I don't know if he's been tested yet. He's never been on the ground. He's never had to come up. Everything has worked smoothly for him, and we could say it's all because of him. We could also say that maybe it's because of the level of opposition to a certain point. I want to see him work back from a serious cut or get up off the canvas. Don't throw in the Mosley, he was hurt in that fight. One punch. And yes, he got staggered. He never admitted it. He said, he hit me, but he never said he was hurt. We all know he was hurt, but hey, I'm talking about when you really see a fighter and you really see if he's got heart and he can come back and make adjustments in the ring, is after they're dropped, after something's not working, after they're losing. I hate to compare the two because I don't think they're even close in talent, but Sergio Martinez, what he did this past weekend against Matthew Macklin is an example, where you're losing on the scorecards, you get nailed a couple of times, and then you got to make an adjustment, turn the fight around, and then win in a dramatic fashion. We haven't seen that from Floyd. Maybe we never will. Maybe there's no one good enough to test him, but that's one of my, in my mind, one of the criteria you need to be determined, be labeled as an elite fighter. My man Alex T says, I did want to throw my 2 cents into about the Kendall Holt situation. Simply put, when he lets his hands go, he wins. When he waits for that one big shot, he loses. He dropped Bradley in the first and last rounds of their fight, and I felt like he could have stopped Bradley at any time during the fight, but he looked like he was waiting for that perfect opening to land a perfect punch, and it never came. Same with the Danny Garcia fight. Holt's one of those guys that if you see him letting his hands go, he's going to have a good night. I agree. I think Kendall Holt's the kind of fighter that he's a take no prisoners guy. He's a kill or be killed guy, and that's exactly how his fights have gone. So I can't disagree with you there, brother. He says, I'm also throwing up over here listening. He was a day behind. He says, I'm throwing up over here listening to Johnny Robbins say Gamboa would have been massacred if he fought Rios. That's a load of crap. Rios gets hit with everything. Gamboa would have tattooed Rios win, lose, or draw. Maybe he doesn't win, but no way would it be a blowout. Rios is not like Roberto Duran from 1975, and even though he's one of my favorite fighters to watch, he's going to get knocked out sooner than later with his style. He has no defense other than eating shots with his face. But aside from styles, it really angers me that some people who get involved with this sport in one way or another, that they're trying to rationalize and justify this decision by Gamboa to pull out. We are talking about a fight where tickets had already been sold and hotel rooms have been booked. This does not happen in any other sport. I'll be honest, man, I'm so annoyed right now I can barely put two thoughts together. It's unacceptable, and can you blame any of the fans for giving up on the sport when this kind of stuff happens? This fight has not been has been marketed now for months, and all of a sudden one of the fighters simply doesn't decide he wants to fight. Well, why should I even waste my time as a fan if the participants don't even want to get in the ring? He says, I'm sure you're corrected by now, but yes, I was corrected about the Williams thing. He's got one more thought. We got to take a break. I want to address that, and I agree and I disagree, and all of that's coming up in 2.
Are you ready, America? Then let's get it on with Fight Now TV. It's time, fight fans. Your channel has arrived. All the fights, all the names, all the action. From world-class boxing events to mixed martial arts showdowns and other combat sports matchups, Fight Now TV delivers the hits and more. Call your television provider and tell them you want to get it on with Fight Now TV. For more details, go to fightnow.com.
Broadcasting in all corners of the globe, on the web and radio.
He would scoff at a stretch of that man, I would
think. You're listening to Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. From upstate New York in the good old US of A.
Boxing is here to stay because we are here to stay.
The best 2 hours of boxing talk on the airwaves.
Hey, fight fans, check out KOFantasyBoxing.com. KO Fantasy Boxing is boxing's only trademarked fantasy game. Check it out, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Select your own gym, your own fighters, track them through a season that can last from 3 months to a year, depending upon which league you join. You got to check this out, man. www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Join it today. Again, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. And tell him Billy C sent ya.
Now back to Talkin' Boxing with Billy C, the only radio host man enough to take a punch from Mike Tyson.
Wait a minute, man. Hold on there. Jeremy, man, I need you to take this one, all right?
Wait, what? No way. I can't do this.
Need I remind you I'm Billy C, damn it? Now put on that mustache and get in there.
Hey, look at me. I'm Billy C. Crap.
The undisputed heavyweight champion of Boxing Talk Radio. It's Talkin' Boxing with Billy C.
Test 1 2. Test 1 2. My fellow Americans, good evening. Welcome back to Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. It's great to be here discussing the sweet science with everybody. I love boxing. I love talking boxing. It's what I do.
Bill.
Wait, what?
Bill.
Why are you interrupting?
Yeah,
Wait, what?
Wrong.
What's the problem?
Billy,
what?
C.
I did not have...
We're gonna have to ask
wrong
you.
Speech. What do you mean wrong, Billy C? What's going on here? Fine, I'll go. I just wanted to talk some boxing on TPSradio.net. That's all I wanted to do. I don't need your damn show. I'll get my own talking wrestling with the other Billy C. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I've always been a Hulkamaniac anyway.
Broadcasting live, brother. Welcome back to Talking Boxing with Billy C. on the mighty TPSradio.net, brother. What you gonna do, brother?
And we're back. You are listening to the Talking Boxing with Billy C radio show. You're watching us on the Fight Now television channel. And I want to welcome the Fight Now audience just joining us the way they do every day, Monday through Friday from 6 to 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And if you don't have the Fight Now channel on your sports channel lineup, then you need to call your local television provider and tell them that you want Fight Now right now. Squeaky wheel gets the job done. Squeaky wheel gets the noise. I don't know, man. If you make a lot of noise and you bug the hell out of them, they're going to add it to your sports channel lineup. It's that simple. For all the information about the channel, check out their website, www.fightnow.com. I'm reading an email. Last one from a listener. This is Alex T. He likes to be called the other Alex. But here's the thing. You know, first and foremost, I wanted to address the one part of his question, which is he says about the Gamboa and the Rios fight. First of all, I agree with him about Bam Bam Rios. His style is one of those short-lived styles. He will get caught and slow down a bit as time goes on, and his career may not last as long as some. But, interesting, you use Roberto Duran as an example. Same kind of style in his career lasted. I think he's even going to fight next week or something, So, I mean, his career lasted forever. So you never know. I do agree, for the most part, that I think Bam Bam Rios' career will not go on and on and on, that's for sure. As far as the Gamboa situation, I never got a confirmation from anyone that fight was actually signed, sealed, and delivered. I know that Bob Arum has mentioned things, but Bob Arum is a chronic liar. There is a very good chance that they agreed to the fight verbally only, in principle. There's a very good, as a matter of fact, there seems to be a trend about that, not only with Top Rank, but also Golden Boy's been doing the same thing, where they start announcing fights before the ink is on the paper, and you can't be doing that. So we don't know about that, and I've said it a million times. If he signed the contract, then I agree that some repercussions should take place about for Gamboa, backing out of a contract. I believe whether they make the right deal or not, once they sign their paper, once they sign their name to the paper, they're obliged to it. That's my opinion. But if he didn't sign a contract, and whether he agreed verbally or not, there's no way in hell that Bob Arum would get that win in a court of law, especially with his history. So if it's verbal, I say attaboy Gamboa, get out of it, because it was a stupid fight to begin with. If it was a contract that was signed, then I say, Gamboa, you should have the repercussions. As far as selling tickets and everything, remember, he never showed up for any of the official press conferences. That was what was launching it. That's when tickets were supposed to go on sale. All right? I don't know about every state. I don't know about the rules about all the states and everything else, but I know one thing is for sure. New York State, you are not allowed to sell a ticket until certain things are out of the way. And one of them is your main event. And that means you've got to have contracts signed and submitted to the commission before you're even allowed to sell a ticket. So take that for what it's worth. I don't know if they sold any tickets. As far as the other party says, Martinez is a counterpuncher, and I think a fight with Floyd would be dreadfully boring. Mayweather would never come forward and force the action. He would rather be booed for 12 rounds and win a dull fight because he's a counterpuncher. His goal every time is to simply win. He doesn't care if he looks impressive, and he just wants to move on to the next payday. This is true. That's what Floyd does. Although he has been the aggressor, he was the aggressor against Ortiz. I liked seeing that. And when he does get pushed into a fight, he fights. Yes, he's a counterpuncher. And Sergio Martinez started out in his last fight as the aggressor, so you never know. You never know. I think Floyd would be cautious because of the size difference, I don't think I ever recall anybody booing the guy, which, they boo him because they hate him, but during his fights, I don't know. I turn the sound down because I can't stand the announcers. But it says, sure, if a guy has his hands down to his side, he'll take a big swing, but other than that, when has he ever been the aggressor? I see a fight between those two being boring, but in the later rounds, Martinez would change the game, plain and simple, and become aggressive. By that time, would probably be asleep. There's definitely a blueprint on how to be successful against Martinez, but no one recently has been able to carry it out. That's because he has something extra that great fighters have, and I'm talking about the willingness to walk through hell to win a fight by KO. And especially when he's on his way to losing. He's done it against Pavlik. He's done it against Macklin, etc. True. He definitely shows he's got heart. He shows that he doesn't quit. He shows excitement. He also shows that he didn't make a right decision with his promoter. Great email. Thank you very much for that. Some news I want to get into right now. We had Kevin Johnson against Alex Lepai on our challenge last week, and for no apparent reason, the fight didn't happen. Then I saw yesterday or Monday that it was rescheduled for April 1st, and I had mentioned that we will go back and add that back to our challenge. It was released yesterday, immediately after the show here, so I didn't get a chance to talk about it. But apparently, Kevin Johnson pulled out of the fight because he was sick. he was sick. He got sick, and they rescheduled it. His brother, who's his spokesperson, says he needs 2 weeks to recover. This is why I think it's BS. He says Johnson made it as far as Los Angeles. Now he lives in New Jersey, and then he turned back. So he's on his way to Australia and decides he's too sick when he lands in L.A. to get his connecting flight, and then turns around and goes home, which is BS. You know, if you're that sick, you don't even get on the plane, right? I mean, you know, what does it take? You know, it takes a couple of hours in the air to you know, prove to yourself that it's over, that you can't make it. Then he goes on to say, and I like this, you know, they describe him in The Land Down Under as trash-talking American heavyweight, which he is. And he says, and I quote, "I just hate to do it, but I'm going to end this boy's career," he says. He goes, "Alex, your promoter's setting it up. You won't make it through 8 rounds." You know, if this guy's a bite was his, just one quarter of his bark, he would be a good fighter. You know, I'm just still, you know, pissed off about me thinking that this guy was going to be the next heavyweight champ and stuff, and he's such a fraud. You know, this Alex Lepai guy, to be honest with you, even if Kevin Johnson beats him and then he's going to be crying for another world title shot guaranteed, is not a big test. I mean, this is a guy that hasn't fought anybody. I think he's making a mistake by fighting Kevin Johnson because Kevin Johnson's got 3 or 4 inch height and reach advantage, and Kevin Johnson's going to box this guy. He's not going to engage. He won't engage with Lepai. So it'll be a boring fight, but we'll see who wins. This whole JuanMa thing, I don't know about you guys, but I think they've dragged him through the mire enough. I mean, the bottom line is he lost a fight and he was knocked out. Stupid Jim Gray and Showtime should have never in a million years interviewed him after a knockout like that, especially a sustained beating like he took, you know, over those rounds. Not that it was just, you know, him being pummeled, but he was taking some hard shots. And, you know, not only did he have to apologize in the press, then the referees, rightly so, the referee was upset about the comments that he made about him and his son, and wanted it done on a larger scale. So, you know, rather than just being cool about it, I think the referee's being a little chickish over this. And nonetheless, JuanMa had to go in front of the cameras and the photographers yesterday at an official press conference to apologize. And the guy who's crying that he wants to be out in public, the guy that, you know, the referee that JuanMa Lopez, you know, bashed, wasn't even there. Didn't even have the decency to show up because he had a prior engagement. But nonetheless, also I think that the commission and everyone else suspending him for as long as they have, I think they're being a little hard on him. I mean, considering that this guy was squeaky clean, and considering that he was knocked out, and considering that your brain gets scrambled when you're knocked out, I think that you know, he's being he's become the scapegoat here. And trust me when I tell you, I don't condone these guys talking smack like this and making up things the way he did and all of that stuff. But facing a year's suspension from his own boxing commission, from the Puerto Rican Boxing Commission, is kind of crazy. The WBO, they suspended him. You know, I mean, that's. I think it's over. I think they're overreacting. I think the apology is good. I think 3 months suspension, maybe 6 at the most, but a year. And JuanMa says about the year suspension, he says, you know, 1 year for me would advance the end of my career. 1 year is too much without fighting. This is my work. This is my work. Meaning this is his job. This is how he makes his living. I agree. I think they're being a little hard on JuanMa. I think enough is enough with this. He apologized. He said it himself. He says he wants the opportunity to apologize face to face with his referee that he Roberto Ramirez, that he made the comments about. Enough is enough, man. You know, give the kid a break. That's my opinion. You know, I don't think anybody should say that kind of stuff, but give the kid a break. You know, he wasn't saying it after, you know, a bad decision or you know, whatever. He was saying it after he was knocked out. After he was knocked out, and wasn't that coherent. Doesn't even remember it, and I believe it. They're discussing the possibility of having the Juan Manuel Marquez and Bam Bam Rios fight, which they're talking about. If both Marquez and Rios come out victorious in their next fights, Juan Manuel Marquez is meeting Sergey Fenchenko on April 14th. And Bam Bam Rios is taking on Richard Abril on the same card. He's the co-main event. If they both win, they want them to fight each other. And Dallas Cowboys Stadium is trying to get that fight there. Now, they did have some other fights there in the past, but they all had Manny Pacquiao on it. So I'm curious to see how they do with sales, to be honest with you there. So we'll see what happens. Now, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., we were talking yesterday about his next fight against Murray, and Martin Murray was the guy that we all thought was going to be his next opponent, even though realistically it should be Sergio Martinez. But yesterday it was announced that because of Martin Murray's past, he has a criminal record, that he will not be able to obtain a visa, a special visa you would need to get into the United States. I'm not sure that this is really true. Here's the thing. The fight is scheduled for June. You're telling me that this guy can't get a visa in time for June right now? I mean, we're talking 2 months. They could expedite it and get it done. The problem that they're having is that he won't be able to make it to the United States for the press tour, which is scheduled for this month, and therefore they're kicking him out of the fight. That's BS. I mean, let's be real. If they really wanted Murray as an opponent for Chavez Jr., then why does he have to be at the press tour, at least in the United States? They're having a Mexican press tour as well. I'm sure he can make it over there, but nonetheless, he can't do it. So now they're looking for another opponent. Now, Andy Lee wants it. Andy Lee says that he deserves to be the opponent for Chavez Jr. And his manager / trainer, Manny Stewart, says, hey, Andy Lee is the guy. He should be the guy that gets the shot. I don't know, man. I don't agree. I think Andy Lee is grossly overrated. Grossly. Is he exciting? Yes, he's an exciting fighter. Would him and Chavez make a decent fight? Yeah, because they're both, limited skills. I think that the fight would be competitive. But, at some point in time, the value of a title should mean that that's the best person. And I know we have 100 zillion titles, but, whatever sanctioning body is making this fighter, any fighter for that matter, their world champion, then that means they are saying to us, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they are saying to us that that's the best fighter that they have ranked in their sanctioning body for that division. So if the WBC believes that Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. is their best middleweight fighter, why wouldn't they, put him in with Lee? They have Lee up there ranked at number 4. He falls within the criteria. But how sad is that when you have these two guys that we all know? I mean, I don't care what the WBC says. I don't care what anybody says. Is Andy Lee the 4th best fighter in the world today in the middleweight division? Is Julio Cesar Chavez the best middleweight in the division? I mean, come on. When are they going to make him fight Sergio Martinez? And of course, don't even think that Martinez is going to accept an offer from Chavez Jr. either, because I'm convinced that they're going to lowball Martinez because Lou DiBella is not opening up his checkbook. If I'm Lou DiBella at this point, I get the money to offer the fight, to Chavez. Offer a good amount of money so Bob Arum says, hey, with my cut, sure, I'll take it, So, That's what I would do in my case. So that's what I would do. This guy. We're waiting for Alex to come on, and you think that he would write down the phone number, the studio phone number. You think he would write it down. He calls in every week, and you think he would write down the damn phone number. But he doesn't. Even Murphy, who's in the chat room right now, I'm sure he remembers the phone number from the handful of times he called months and months and months ago. And Alex can't even remember the phone number. Come on, man. What's going on? What's going on? I don't know what you're saying now, Alex, but now's the time. Now's the time to call. Oh, it's the computers, he says. Yeah, it is the computers because we rely so much on them that, you can't. That's what it is, man. We rely so much on them. We don't have brains anymore, right? Isn't it true? I mean, look at it this way. When I was a kid and phone numbers, I used to have 1 million phone numbers in my head. I could rattle off, maybe not 1 million, but I could rattle off at least 20 phone numbers. Now, I don't even know my own phone number. I just find home when I click it on my phone, what do you do? What if an emergency, if you could find a payphone, if you even found one here in the United States, and you ran up to the phone, you had to make a phone call, you'd stare at those numbers for a minute and go, what the hell's the number I got to call? Right?
Yeah, I make the mistake of, I keep a bunch of them in my desktop computer, but when I'm using the laptop, then I go to check the numbers, and I'm like, oh, man, that number's not there. And then I just went upstairs, and I'm trying to boot up the desktop, and it takes so long that I just was like, let me just ask him.
Yeah, well.
But you're right, I'll write them down.
yeah, maybe jot it down this time, And Murphy's saying, how about redial? How about try redial,
I know, well, I know, but probably... call whoever I called last.
No. He's not saying redial. He's saying speed dial.
Oh, yeah.
Like set it on the phone. But anyway, I was just talking about, and I wanted to ask you about some other stuff before we do our blast in a few minutes, 15 minutes or so. But, this Chavez Jr. and now, he can't get Martin Murray because of visa problems. And now they're talking about possibly Andy Lee to fight him. And what happened to Sergio? I mean, why aren't they ordering this fight? I mean, why isn't the WBC, who seems to stick their nose, especially of late, into every other sanctioning body's business, and they try to make it like they're the sport of boxing, and now they have an issue within their own sanctioning body where I still don't know why they stripped Martinez and elevate him to diamond champion. And then now they still don't even make him the mandate, and he's still trying to struggle to get a mandatory shot against their regular old champion, and they're still bypassing him. What's up with that, man?
Yeah, it's the gyrations they put themselves through to try to make it look like they're not protecting Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. It's kind of pathetic because I really think that's all it is that Arum doesn't want that fight yet, and I think nobody wants that fight other than Martinez's people because they know he'd win. I think what JuanMa said in his return the other day was absolutely right. That at this point, size be damned, Sergio Martinez will paint a picture on Julio Cesar Chavez's face, and they know that. And because he's the man to beat at middleweight, they still want it to look like Chavez Jr. is still a force to be reckoned with. So it's kind of pathetic how the WBC is sort of obliging Chavez to do what they can to make it seem like he's not avoiding anybody. He's this second-tier champion, and Martinez is the other champion, and they'll get to each other eventually. But, it is what it is. He's being avoided.
Yeah, first of all, I think that, I hate to say this, but I think that a Chavez Jr. and a Martinez fight would be an interesting fight. I
think so too.
I
think you're right.
There's a size factor. There's and the question of painting a picture on Julio's face. This is true if he stayed away, but you would have to assume that he's going to bully himself in and try and get that fight close inside, which is in his favor. And you never know. He does have power, and you never know. But
right, that's why they fight the fights. I mean, I think Martinez should be heavily favored, and I think he would win. But I think that, and I think he'd look great doing it. But you're right; you never know what could happen. And stylistically, Martinez, he likes to fight with his hands low, and when you do that, there could be a danger, and that's what would make it exciting.
Well, I want to talk about that in 1 second, but when I look at the a possible Chavez and Martinez matchup, I got to ask one question: why doesn't Lou DiBella come up with some money and make the offer in public? You know, right now he's waiting on Bob Arum to come up with an offer. Now Bob Arum, which is like him, you know, he could turn around and say, "All right, yeah, let's make the fight. We'll offer Sergio Martinez $50,000 to fight Chavez for the title," and of course they're going to turn it down. Then Arum's going to say, "Well, hey, we offered the fight; they wouldn't take it." You know, he's going to leave out the money part. You know. Why doesn't Lou make the move and try to promote the fight himself? Why does he have to try to position his fighter to be the other side of a fight with anybody that's got substantial money?
I think because he realizes that he does not have a guy who commands the same audience that Chavez Jr. can, and so I think he's willing to be the B side, and he was even tweeting as late as last night that that Martinez would be willing to take less than 50% in order to get that fight made versus Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. So it really does seem like DiBella, in terms of DiBella on this one, he's letting Top Rank be in the driver's seat. So. You know, it'll be interesting to see what happens, but I just don't think that Arum wants that fight for Chavez Jr. yet.
Yeah, well, like I'm saying, I just think that Lou has failed him. You know, Lou. The reason why the reason why Chavez Jr. demands a bigger audience is because he's been promoted and because people know who he is. You know, obviously the Mexican community and also people in the States, you know, regular, you know, United Americans, you know, whether they're a Mexican background or not, they know who he is. You know, on the other hand, Sergio, he's an Argentine fighter. Yeah, when was the last time he fought in Argentina? You know, they fight him in New York. You know, I mean, New York is diversified with, I was saying this yesterday, they're diversified. We have all kinds of backgrounds living in New York. There's a huge population of Mexicans and Puerto Ricans, Italians, Irish, you know. How about Argentines? I don't know how many Argentines there are in New York. I don't know, you know, but the bottom line is Lou could step up. I don't know. I just think that this is half the problem. You know, of course he's willing to take less, but quick thoughts before we go to break. What did you think of Martinez's performance against Macklin this weekend?
I thought he looked really good. I mean, I think that, yes, he was trailing for a bit, but I thought that a couple of those rounds were close, and I do think that he is the kind of guy that he's not a sprint type of guy. I mean, they mentioned in the show that he started biking when he was 13, and this was the same case with Darren Barker. I thought the criticism was a little too severe for him in that fight. He was fighting a big, strong guy, and he's somebody who he's willing to get hit. You know, he's willing to have a bloody nose through a fight, and that's, you know, he wears it as a badge of courage. He's a prize fighter. That's what I think that people should love about him. He knew he was going to get that kid. Now, maybe the knockdown was of the wake-up call, because he certainly started planting his feet and throwing a nice little, nasty little uppercut in there, weaving that into the punches he was landing. But I really thought that he was, even though he might have dropped a few rounds, he was never out of control, or not far out of control, at least not in my mind. I mean, I think that's the kind of skill type guy that he is that he knows, you know, who he's fighting. And I didn't think he was getting surprised in there that Macklin fought as hard as he did. I thought Macklin, came on with a good effort, but like I said, I thought Martinez was always in control.
Interesting because it almost looks like he gets bored in there. He started out really strong. I'm talking about Martinez. Started out strong in the first 2 rounds. He was aggressive, which he normally doesn't do. And then he kind of looked like he was thinking about what he was going to be doing after the fight and maybe next week and, what other things, could be on his schedule. And, it's like he got bored until he, they called that a knockdown. He got a little ticked off. And then, we saw what happened after that.
Yeah, and it could be that he's such an endurance guy. He figures, I'm going to take this guy into deep water. So it's almost like he gets into a phase of being too patient, and it was the knockdown that sort of woke him up, that made him say, okay, let me put the hammer down here and start getting this guy out of here, because that's what's so impressive with him, and he's not like in the past we've had big, strong, athletic middleweights who can really whack guys out. Sergio Martinez is really not like that. He's a blown-up junior middleweight. Even you could see the very different physicality of the two of them during the bout. Macklin is this broad-shouldered, sort of thick-bodied middleweight, and Sergio is almost slender. I mean, he's so athletic, and he's not a big guy. So he has to get these guys with endurance and sharp, crisp punching and angles, and that's what he does, and it takes some time.
Yeah, I just like to see him against somebody that can move a little,
I think that's why we are in a situation where, unlike previous middleweights who you want to see them move up, he's a kind of guy who, because he's not too big to begin with, and because there's a lot of talent at welterweight and, in those lower weight classes, you want to see him fight one of those guys, either moving up or at a catch weight or something. It's kind of rare. You don't see that as often, at least not that I remember in my lifetime. Most of the time, guys just want to get bigger and bigger and bigger. But, the idea of him fighting a super middleweight, forget it.
Yeah, no, I like him where he is. I'm just saying the choice of opponents as Lou waits around to get this big payday that he's dreaming about just are flat-footed, it seems. And
well, I tell you, and don't be surprised. You know how HBO is. With this weekend, we got the guys at 154. We got Kirkland Molina. If that looks like a good fight, I wouldn't be surprised at all if by the end of that broadcast, they're hyping the idea of whoever wins fighting Martinez.
That wouldn't be bad. Kirkland may be ready. But, hey, Alex, don't go anywhere. We're going to come back with the blast from the past in about 2 minutes.
Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. now has official merchandise available on TalkinBoxing.com. T-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, and mugs. And yes, even undergarments. Talkin' Boxing apparel is the perfect gift for the boxing fan in your life. Log on to www.talkinboxing.com. That's TalkinBoxing.com and place your order today.
Join us here for 2 hours as Billy and the gang do what they do best.
Every time I start talking about boxing, a white man got to pull Rocky Marciano's ass. Rocky Marciano was good, but compared to Joe Louis, Rocky Marciano ain't.
Beat Joe Louis's ass.
Joe Louis was 75 years old when he fought.
Huh?
What? We're supposed to be talking boxing.
It's Talking Boxing with Billy C.
As Billy C sits here in the multi-million-dollar Talkin' Boxing Studios, sipping a fine wine before you're even out of bed, you should be thinking, damn, I wish I had a mustache like his. It's the Talkin' Boxing with Billy C show. He's Billy C, and you're not. Sucks to be you.
Now let's dig into our archives and hear a rare interview when Billy C first became the champion of boxing talk radio. Hello, Billy C. As the new champ, can we ask you a few questions?
Why, certainly.
Okay, your fans would like to know how you and your corner have successfully walloped the competition.
We're not ordinary people. We're morons.
Anything else?
I'm a victim of circumstance.
Did your success finally come when you made the show 5 days a week for 2 hours? What do you think?
I'm trying to think, but nothing happens.
Now, please tell the listeners what you've learned from making it this far.
Certainly. If at first you don't succeed, keep on sucking till you do succeed.
Great words of wisdom, Billy C. Keep up the great work as the undisputed People's Champion with your show, Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. Any last words to anyone who's listening?
This is your fault, you bonehead.
And we're back. You're listening to the Talking Boxing with Billy C. radio show. You're watching us on the Fight Now television channel. And speaking of now, we're going to be doing the
Blast from the Past. We shine the spotlight again on fighters from years past.
Top-ranking Joe Louis is the leading contender.
Joe Frazier with a left hook. Good right hand thrown by Foreman that time. Look at that left hook. Belt that goes to Ray Mancini.
It's Blast from the Past on Talkin' Boxing.
And this week's Blast from the Past, which is sponsored by the International Boxing Organization, where the computerized ranking system is second to none. You can check it out, www.iboboxing.com. Features, former world middleweight champion. He's also a Boxing Hall of Famer, Randy Turpin. And bringing us some info on Randy is my man, Alex Pierpaoli, man. What's up?
Good morning.
Tell us about this guy, man. What a story. And don't jump to the ending. I know you. I know. I shouldn't even say that, but don't jump to the ending because Alex always likes to. It's a sad ending, actually. But
love the grisly, tragic ending.
Right. It's for all these greats. That seems to be unfortunately, there's a common theme with that, though, isn't there? I mean, it's
it does seem like that.
It seems like these guys, especially the better they are, the worse they fall at the worst times, you know. But anyway, tell us about Randy Turpin.
Yeah, this was another request from our buddy there, Boxing Bugle, on the Twitter. And, he asked for Randy Turpin, whose real name was Randolph Adolphus Turpin. And he was born June 7th, 1928, in Leamington, Warwickshire, England. Turpin was the son of an infantryman from British Guyana and an English woman, and evidently his father died from complications from poison gas exposure during World War I. And growing up, Turpin was picked on because of his biracial ethnicity, and he started boxing at the Leamington Boys Club. And at 12 years old, he was a carnival fighter. You could win 4 sterling if you lasted 5 rounds with him. Evidently, that was about $14. And he was the youngest of 3 boxing brothers. 4 boxing brothers, actually, in total. Lionel, Jackie, Dick, and Randy. Turpin became known as the Leamington Licker. He won the English junior flyweight title at 15 years old. And 2 years later was the amateur welterweight champ of England. And he worked as a naval cook. At 20, he began weight training and started packing on some muscle. And it was his mother, actually, who made the decision because his older brother, Dick, was boxing, and they were both around the same weight class. And she didn't want them fighting each other. So she made Dick become the manager, and Randy became the fighter. Because she just wanted to forbid the idea that, they would ever fight. So Turpin ended up, as an adult, was 5'9" tall. He had the skin the color of honey and fought as a middleweight and eventually as a light heavyweight. He was actually slightly deaf. As a child, he was swimming and his swim trunks caught on a branch or like a root underwater, and he was down there so long, the pressure damaged one ear permanently. So he always was partially deaf.
Huh. That's something I never knew about Randy Turpin. He had a great amateur career. For all the listeners that don't understand, I find it interesting because really prior to his era, at least in here in the States, those circus performance fights, where the carnival, however you want to call it, where they actually, go in and fight a guy and try and last a certain amount of rounds, was already like kind of out of style here. It was still hot and heavy over in England?
Evidently, yeah, they called it a booth fighter. So, yeah, from what it sounds like, people would just come up, in like a sort of county fair type atmosphere or carnival atmosphere and challenge him. And they'd slip on the gloves and try to go for a few rounds. I'm sure it was, rather sloppy and chaotic, but, you could win some money doing it. He was a kid when he was doing that, too, so I would assume that, he was very speedy and, would do this with all ages.
It's funny because when you hear about it here in the States, you hear about, John L. Sullivan did it, and the turn of the century, they were still doing it. But, by 1920, by the Jack Dempsey days, they had stopped, and he was several years, obviously, after that. But interesting.
I have to think that lawsuits and insurance and things like that put a stop to that because just the amount of risk that must have been inherent in doing something like that must have been pretty significant.
You know what? Could you imagine all the things they did underhandedly on those carnivals that would come into town and leave in the middle of the night? Come on, man. Come on. Once they started trying to police them, that's probably when that business took a hit. But he was still an amateur in 1946 when he turned pro. He fought 3 times when he decided to turn pro. Any information on what made him? Did he feel that he pretty much, because he had such a successful amateur career, when did he know it was time? I mean, obviously he won the middleweight ABA title in 46 and then turned pro in September.
I did not find much on those early bouts in England. Now, the searches I do are mostly American papers, so that's probably why. It wasn't until, right before the Sugar Ray Robinson bout that I started finding, articles about him. But yeah, his early going he's pretty successful. He certainly got off to, he strung together quite a few knockouts in his early career and fought almost exclusively in England.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the thing about Randy Turpin is, his most famous fights, obviously, were the 2 against Sugar Ray Robinson and then the other one against Bobo Olsen. Other than that, and then obviously later on in his career, he fought some other names. But other than that, a lot of the opponents, at least as far as the United States is concerned, were pretty unknown. Right.
Yeah. Now some of these names might be, well known in England, but you're right. In terms of for us, they don't particularly ring bells for us, and even the American papers. I didn't really see much coverage of. Sometimes you'd see a line that it would say something like, October 17th, Turpin KO 5 over Finch, but that's all it would give you. So it wasn't really much of a story. But, yeah, evidently, leading up to, by the time he was 23, it just so happened that Sugar Ray Robinson had sort of done a European tour, and as he was wrapping it up, the last bout he was going to have there was in London, and it was Turpin who got to challenge him, and he did. He upset him. He actually came close to stopping him in the 14th round. He staggered Ray. He was a 5-1 underdog when he beat him. And it was one of the biggest upsets in 25 years of boxing history. They likened it at the time to when Braddock beat Max Baer or when Tunney beat Dempsey the first time. And the thing that was interesting, and I always like to see this kind of thing because the training aspect, I think that's what people don't, the sort of casual fan forgets about how much training goes into preparing for a bout. And Randy Turpin credited a sparring mate by the name of Mel Brown for showing him how to beat Sugar Ray Robinson. And Brown had worked in the camps of both Ray Robinson and Ezra Charles, and he knew how to beat Ray. And it was through training with him that Turpin really thought that's, how he had the secret. By the time they got in the ring, he was ready for everything Ray Robinson could give him.
Well, I guess he didn't use him for the second fight, but
he really didn't. When he came over, Mel Brown did not have money. The money to make the trip. So he did not. He was not part of his entourage on the return bout.
Not that I'm going to make excuses for Sugar Ray Robinson, but I am.
Go right ahead. Absolutely.
In that fight, and now what people got to understand is Sugar Ray Robinson was a guy that decided to tour Europe and fight all these fights in Europe prior to losing to Randy Turpin. He wasn't training at his fullest. He had an entourage that would even make Floyd Mayweather blush a little bit. I mean, he took his pink Cadillac with him to Europe. I mean, that he was drawing attention everywhere he went. And he took this fight lightly. He clearly took it lightly. He didn't train for it. I'm not making excuses for him because obviously, the repercussions was that he lost his world title. But 2 months later, they had the rematch. And being a shrewd businessman that Robinson was, he did have a rematch clause in his contract, which is pretty smart when you think about it, because he was so cocky and underestimated Randy Turpin so much that he did have the hindsight, the foresight to put in the rematch clause. Almost 2 months to the day later, they have the rematch in the United States in New York, and Sugar Ray Robinson knocks him out. Now, let's talk about the training. Was Randy Turpin unprepared? Because one of the knocks on Randy Turpin later in his career, specifically against Bobo Olsen, was that he hardly trains for that fight.
Yeah, with the Bobo Olsen fight, his personal life was in turmoil. But from what I read, he seemed to be in pretty good shape going into the rematch. He did not have Mel Brown. And one thing that I thought was very strange was they were reporting that he was doing, this is crazy, he did 10 rounds of sparring on September 9th. The fight was September 12th. He sparred with 3 guys that day. Zach Hobbs of Philadelphia, he was a middleweight, Bill Dockery, a Brooklyn light heavy, and Eddie Phillips, a young welter. So this is 3 days before he's going a 15-rounder defending the title. He went 10 rounds of sparring. And just the day before, on the 5th, he sparred 11 rounds. And on the 7th, he went 15. He said he liked to build up to it in his camp and finally do 15 rounds. And at one point, in an article about the September 5th sparring, he said his weight was 164. So I wonder if he was a little heavy, and that's why he was doing so much sparring. But to me, that seems strange to spar that many rounds, that many days. This is, 72 hours before you're fighting one of the best middleweights of all time, if not the best middleweight of all time.
Now, you're talking about his second fight against Sugar Ray, or are you talking about the Bobo Olsen fight?
No, this is in the second fight with Sugar Ray.
Yeah,
because you were asking about the training, and was he as well trained as he was for the first one? And from what it seemed like, yes, but I wonder if he was heavy, and that's why he was doing the sparring.
Well, after he lost that fight, he got back up on his horse, so to speak, and he came back and he ended up winning the light heavyweight British title and Commonwealth titles. But he was going back and forth, and maybe he was having weight issues. He was going back and forth with the weight, and he fought a couple of fights. One name that I was pretty shocked to see is Don Cockle. He fought in 1952 and knocked him out. Now, that's the same Don Cockle that eventually moved up to heavyweight. I believe he fought Rocky Marciano, didn't he?
Yes, you're right. He was. Yeah. And that fight, I'm not sure if it's the whole thing, but clips of it are on YouTube, as well as some of the Ray Robinson fights. Yeah, Ray Robinson said that he hit harder than Jake LaMotta. So Turpin definitely could pop. And so somebody like a Don Cochran, because he knocked him out. So, the idea of fighting this is another one of these middleweights who likes going after the big men.
Well, like I had alluded to before, he won a couple of fights. He got back on track in England with some of their titles, and ultimately he was making a climb again in the world rankings. And on October 21st in 1953, he stepped in with Carl Bobo Olsen, who we all know fought Sugar Ray Robinson as well. In New York, again, he comes back to New York and loses a 15-round decision. Tell us about that fight.
Yeah, for 8 rounds, it was a rather dull and dreary affair, save for a second-round knockdown that I'm sorry, that was for the other fight. My bad. Yeah, see, this was the one where the personal stuff on his mind was really a problem. He ended up the very night that he lost that fight, he ended up getting in a scuffle and was arrested for assault for fighting Adele Daniels. Evidently, he was either distraught after the loss or whatever, and was arrested a few days later for that. But yeah, the fight was not all that, thrilling. It wasn't as exciting as the bouts with Ray Robinson, but yeah, he was not himself. He just, he seemed, from what I was reading, it seemed almost like this Turpin got old fast.
Yeah,
and Olsen certainly brought that out of him because it almost, I think maybe I'd like to read more about Bobo Olsen at some time because I don't really know too much about him. And it was strange the way that the papers, it was almost like the papers weren't giving him the tremendous due. They seemed to take great pleasure in mocking his bald, male pattern baldness.
Let me tell you something. Let's right now go on air and say that Carl Bobo Olsen will be our next Blast from the Past because he was a great fighter. Great fighter. A couple of good fights with Sugar Ray Robinson. So, but anyway, let's finish up this. That was the last time he fought in the United States. He went on to fight with more success than failure, predominantly in the UK. And then, his last fight took place in 1964. He went out on top with back-to-back knockout wins to his last 3 he had lost by knockout. Here's the question I want to ask before I give a wrap-up with him. Number one, he's a Hall of Famer. Justifiable?
That's always a tough one. He definitely broke some records in the set. Well, the upset win over Robinson, that was, I believe it was the first, he became quite a British hero with that.
Yeah, but is that but is that Hall of Fame?
British
one fight Hall of Fame?
I don't know. It's a tough one. I really don't think so.
Right.
There's only one win, Yeah, it's over Sugar Ray Robinson, and yes, it was, at the time, Robinson had only lost to LaMotta. So it wasn't like but again, we know Ray Robinson's best fights were at welter. So by this time already, he was up at middleweight. And you're right. I mean, they said in the papers that Robinson was not himself after the champagne and caviar circuit in France, so he was not training seriously. So when you think about it, what did Turpin do? He took advantage of a great champion on a night where he wasn't his best. That's what a good fighter, what a great fighter should do. So he certainly deserves a lot of credit for that. But Hall of Fame worthy credit, I'm not quite sure.
Right. Now you were talking about his scuffle in New York. That was when he was charged with rape. Is that the one you were talking about?
Well, that's what seems. Him and Adele Daniels went back and forth between lawsuits and divorce proceedings, and eventually it got to the level of sexual assault. She charged him with that. The way we refer to it today is a date rape, because that night he supposedly assaulted her, put a pillow over her head and assaulted her, but then within a few hours they were seen together at a restaurant. So they certainly had a tumultuous relationship, and this, again, certainly from what it sounds like, I would have to agree that it contributed to the loss to Olsen, because not only did he have the things going on with Adele Daniels, but when he returned to England after that fight, he was served with papers. He was named as the reason of why this woman, Pamela Valentine, was suing her husband for divorce. He was the other man named in the suit. So, there was, some problems in terms of personal life and women specifically. Eventually, there was a settlement in that lawsuit over the rape allegations.
I know, and I was just going to say, talk about a good defense lawyer. They initially were seeking $100,000, and they end up settling for $3,500 in a pack of gum, $3,500 in a new dress. Wow. But anyway, he ended up retiring. See, now David Allen, he's obviously a UK guy. He says layup that Randy Turpin belongs in the Hall of Fame. And I don't know, man. I don't know. I on his record, I see two notable names, and he lost 2 of those 3 fights. But anyway, he retired from the sport, and he tried to be a successful businessman with very poor results. He owned hotels, some real estate, some other businesses, restaurants, what have you, and pretty much failed in all of them. Apparently, he was pretty much close to being broke at the time of his death. Go ahead, tell us how he died, Alex.
It's a sad trajectory downward from what it sounds like. By December of '65, he went to Madison Square Garden for a farewell to Ray Robinson ceremony, and by that time he was on the wrestling circuit just trying to make money, and he even worked in a moving company. But he had problems with back taxes. He had 4 daughters and a second wife, that the 2 of them, him and the second wife, were trying to run a cafe that was not doing well, and they had declared bankruptcy in 1962. And by May of '66, they found him dead from self-inflicted gunshot wounds. Now, here's the weird part. He was shot twice, once in the chest and once in the head. The other thing, now, if that's not weird enough, there was a suicide note, but there was also injuries to his youngest daughter, Gwen, who was only 2, who was hit in the eye and the chest. So I could not find an article that explained that, but it just seemed like not only a sad, tragic end, but a lot of questions, more questions than suicide always leaves.
Jeez. Stray bullet, 2 shots, 1 to the chest, 1 to the head. Worst case of suicide I've ever seen. It's like those articles where, it's like, you're sure it was suicide, usually a suicide is 1 shot, usually to the head, But,
and it did seem like, because there was articles for about a week afterward, and it wasn't until maybe 7 days that there was an investigation, and it was, decided that it was a suicide. So at first, I guess there was some question about it because of the bullets and, maybe the trajectories and stuff like that. But I don't know, very weird and just sad. And, again, from what David Allen said, if we were looking at British papers, maybe, we know more about these guys, that he had, had throughout his record these English guys. And maybe if we knew more about them, we could say, yeah, he belongs in the Hall of Fame. But, as an American, our perspective, we see Sugar Ray Robinson, and that's it.
Let's not go by what David Allen says. All right, I mean, come on. But anyway, Randy Turpin, former world middleweight champion. He also was a former British, Commonwealth, and European middleweight champion, and the former British and Commonwealth light heavyweight champion. He had a career record of 66 wins, 45 coming by knockout, 8 losses. He was stopped 5 times throughout his career. He did have 1 draw, 427 rounds as a professional, with a 60% knockout ratio, which is pretty damn good. Randy Turpin, our blast from the past this week. Great job with that one, Alex, and we look forward to next week. We just announced it, Carl Bobo Olsen. So we'll chat about him. He was I know a guy that every time I talk about boxing, he says, one of my favorite fighters, Carl Bobo Olsen. He always says it, and he was on he was on television a lot in the late 50s and early 60s in the United States. He was on those Gillette broadcasts and everything. So he a lot of people that were watching boxing at that time could definitely relate to Carl Bobo Olsen. So we'll be chatting about him next week. Look forward to it, man.
Me too. That sounds great.
All right, my man. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, Billy C. Take care.
All right, that's Alex Pierpaoli doing a great job, as he always does, with our blast from the past. This week it was Randy Turpin. I got to take a break, and when I come back, I'm scheduled to have the infamous, and I do mean infamous, Joe Santaliquido.
Talking boxing with Billy C. Every week, 2 hours of the best boxing talk on the radio.
Mike Tyson looked like he put on some pounds. He was fat. He went into McDonald's and he just said to them, hey, give me 6 of everything on the menu. He put on 2 watches and covered 2 time zones. I'm talking fat here. Got on a scale the other day and it said, come on, one of you guys got to get off. Last thing I heard is that he jumped into the ocean and he left a ring around the continent. He's fat.
Boxing
with Billy C.
The 2012 Summer Olympic Games unfold in 5 months in London. The honor and the history of playing host goes back a long way. How long? That's next on Sports Shorts with me, the Sports Princess.
This Your Family Today tip is brought to you by Stouffer's, helping bring your family together with wholesome dinner options, even on the busiest of nights. Find dinner table ideas to bring your family together at letsfixdinner.com. To get kids involved in dinnertime conversation, ask specific questions, not broad ones. Instead of what happened today at school, try what was the best thing that happened today. The more specific you are, the more they'll have to say. For more tips like these, visit us at parenthood.com/yourfamilytoday.
Legend has it that the Olympics go back to Hercules, but let's leave Greek mythology out of it. The modern games opened in 1896. Since Athens couldn't afford to put them on, a businessman ponied up the coin. Pole vaulting, weightlifting, shot put, and swimming, few of the handful of events. Since those days, some of the original sports remain. Others come and go, depending on the whims of the International Olympic Committee. Australia, France, Germany, and China have hosted summer games, and this will be the 3rd time for London. As for the winter games, the U.S. has hosted them 4 times since they started in 1924 in France, featuring sports like alpine cross-country skiing, figure skating, and such. Between the summer and the winter games, there are hundreds of sports and thousands of athletes. You never know what city is going to get a crack at hosting next. I'm the Sports Princess with Sports Shorts.
Now back to Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. He may not have an Excellence in Broadcasting award, but the night's still young.
And he's got martinis.
So you never know what may be by morning. It's Talkin' Boxing with Billy C.
Talking boxing with Billy C.
The one, the only, Don King.
Makes me feel good, Billy, to have you, the #1 show in the country, Talking Boxing with Billy. So I invite each and every American that's listening to this great show to tune in. Because we want you to be there with Billy and me.
Sweet Susie Q, she was a rebel. No angel wings, more like the devil. She was so hot, so cool and nasty. Believe it or not, here's what she asked me. If you need love with no
And we're back. You are listening to the Talking Boxing with Billy C radio show, and you are watching us on the Fight Now television channel. And if you don't have the Fight Now channel on your sports channel lineup, then give your local television provider a call, whether it be satellite dish or whether it be cable. and tell them that you want Fight Now right now. It's that simple, man. Pick up the phone and tell them that you want the channel. Add it to your sports channel lineup right now, and you'll get it because you gotta ask, and you shall receive. Just like I just did. I asked to have Alex Pierpaoli back on the line, and I think he's here.
Yeah, I'm like, I wish I could make that little dingle, dingle, dingle thing with my nose, like I Dream of Jeannie there, or Bewitched. Who was that?
Yeah, it was Bewitched.
Bewitched.
I Dream of Jeannie did the old folding the arms, and she's.
Oh, that's right.
I wish I could have fit in that damn bottle of hers. Jeez. But anyway, the infamous Joe Santoliquido must be oversleeping, so I figured, you know what, I'll get your thoughts. We didn't get a lot of time to talk about some fights from last week. Of course, we talked briefly about Sergio Martinez, and I wanted to talk about La Bamba Rodriguez because, listen, man, we got some slack. Some people liked the Showtime's guy. A couple weeks ago, I don't like being yelled at during a broadcast, and most people didn't like Gus Johnson. But the thing is this: I don't really listen to the commentating anymore because I don't want to be negative all the time about it. But I will say this: I did happen to catch the HBO team saying how La Bamba Rodriguez is ready to take this step into the next level, which is the top 10 guys in the super middleweight division. I can't see it, man. I like La Bamba, but this is a guy he's just not ready to make that leap. What do you think?
I think you're absolutely right. I think it was crazy talk. And I think that we kind of got a perfect example of where HBO falls down, I think. Even though I think that, they do have some of the top names in the sport, and they certainly think that they're the best broadcasting company in the sport. I think they showed where they really are not very credible. That fight was an ESPN main event. I'm not sure it really belonged on World Championship Boxing, that's for sure. I thought that they were a little too hard on the sort of, whether it was exciting or not. I think for an ESPN quality main event, the excitement level was appropriate. But I think mentioning Edwin Rodriguez in the same breath as Carl Froch, even Arthur Abraham, is way premature. And what Manny Stewart said is he would do very well with any of the top super middleweights. Come on, Manny, really? I don't think he would do very well.
Manny's
I think Carl Froch would spank him.
I think Manny is got some profit sharing or something going on with HBO because he's come out with some ludicrous, as Mike Tyson would say, statements on air. I'm never going to forgive him for the Jorge Linares comment. I'm sorry. I just can't. After not even 3 minutes, he's saying he's I admit he's the best boxer I've ever seen, and I'm like, what? This is the same guy that, we're talking Kronk, Jim, we're talking all those fighters, and he's the best one you've ever seen. I'm just, it's just corporate, and that's what happens with Jim sometimes, Jim Lampley. But for them to say it, and I also found it amusing, whether it was just maybe me being a little too picky or just not coming to his head quick enough, but he mentioned every super middleweight except Lucien Bute. And I'm saying to myself, how could you leave him out? I mean, okay, I'll argue to the death with somebody about who's better, Andre Ward or him, and I'll accept either side, but you got to mention his name. I mean, you can't be saying Bika and Abraham and everybody else and not mention Bute.
Oh, I think that was absolutely by design. I don't think he forgot him. I think you're absolutely right. I think he purposely avoided him because he's no longer under contract with them. And that torpedoes their credibility in the most complete way. I mean, I don't know how you could say, you guys are the heartbeat of boxing or whatever their slogan is, if you can purposefully avoid mentioning the guy that everyone thinks of as, if not the best, second best, second only to Andre Ward in the division. And, I mean, that, to me, that was a glaring example of what, the way Jim Lampley operates, because I don't believe for a second that he couldn't remember him. I think that was purposeful, and I wonder if they weren't saying in his ear, don't mention Lucien Boutte.
Well, that brings me to this. It's funny because you wonder exactly how they're going to position themselves with that. And this is where I'm critical. I was saying earlier about Lou DiBella and Sergio Martinez. Well, it's the same exact scenario with Dan Goossen and Andre Ward. Here's a guy who's at the top, if not, number one, like you said, number two of the super middleweight division. We all know he's going to leave that division eventually. He's a young kid. In my opinion, he doesn't have that charisma or whatever, but as far as in the ring, he does everything right. I can never find anything wrong with him. He's solid performances all the time. He's a guy that prepares. He's a good guy. You never hear crap out of his mouth. All of the things that I want in a champion personally. And yet Dan Goossen appears to be a guy that's going to wait around and wait for another opportunity from some other promoter that's going to either force Andre Ward to leave the super middleweight division or, fight a different fight. Why not he be the guy that starts making the offers, just like I'm critical of Lou DiBella, why he's not making the offers to have his guys fight? Why are this level of promoter waiting for one of the top three guys to offer him a big payday? And, of course, we know that's Top-Rank, Golden Boy, or even Don King.
Yeah, and it really is unfortunate in that division, too, because you would think that now is the time to try to strike a deal just with the two best fighters, in that division. I mean, despite whoever is the most powerful or the most lucrative promoter, it's the fight boxing fans want to see, Boutte versus Ward. And yet, I mean, for me, that's why I'm a little disappointed to have to watch Boutte versus Froch. But if you can't make Boutte Ward, then Boutte Froch, I guess, is a second best. But I just don't understand why we can't have Boutte Ward. To me, it makes the most sense.
He didn't want it.
Is that what we were working towards? I just don't get it. I think that, along with, not seeing Pacquiao Mayweather, the fact that we're not seeing Ward Boutte after the way things ended last year, I think that's very unfortunate.
He didn't want to fight. They asked him immediately after the fight, "Are you ready for Boutte?" And he said that he wasn't ready he didn't want to fight Boutte yet. But then, in his defense, he had the injury. He had a hand injury, or he had some kind of an injury that sidelined him for a while, and that was the reason they gave for not making the Boutte fight right away. So I'm not really anti-Ward about Boutte fighting Carl Froch. They did sign that home-and-home fight where if for some reason Froch beats Boutte in England, they'll come back to Montreal. I have a feeling Boutte is going to go over there, win, and then there's no reason to have the second fight, and then Andre Ward will travel to Canada because that's Dan Goossen's style. He'll want Team Boutte, which is Yvonne Michel, GYM, to put up the money, and they will, because that fight will be offered money from both networks, Showtime or HBO.
Well, yeah. Well, as long as we get to see that eventually, I'll be happy. And I think that if we get to snack on Froch Boutte first, I think that can only be good because. I mean, as much as I did think Ward won and won convincingly and definitely seemed to separate himself from the rest of the people in the Super 6 tourney, by far, Froch was the solid second place finish in that. So I have no problem seeing, if we can't see Boutte Ward, I have no problem seeing Boutte Froch. And especially if the eventual prize is Boutte Ward.
I agree 100%. And I think that, Froch, Nobody's got to be critical of Froch. I mean, I read stuff. Oh, Showtime says we're not interested in Froch. He just lost our Super Six, and it's like, hello, the guy fought. I mean, arguably in any weight class, I don't know if you could find a guy that collectively has had such a tough level of opposition as Carl Froch has. So I'm not ruling him out at all in terms of top super middleweight. So I like the fight. Ward deserves to get healthy. Let Bute fight Carl Froch. If he beats Froch, which I think he will, then the next fight will be Bute and Ward. I think that's what's going to happen. We have a decent fight on HBO this week, or do we? That's my question. Eric Morales against Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia has been in a couple of fights that you could argue that he lost. One was against Kendall Holt. The other was against Ashley Theophane. But Eric Morales just doesn't have the movement unless you're standing right in front of him. Like in that fight where he had against that kid. I mean, the kid was beating the snot out of him until he ran out of gas, and Eric finally caught up with him. I don't think he's going to catch up with Garcia. How do you see the fight going?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that this could be the end of Eric Morales, and I tell you, as much as I love him, I hope it is the end for his own sake, and I just hope that it's not a brutal beatdown. But I think that, we saw what a young opponent can do with this, Eric Morales at this stage of the game. Garcia has enough little wrinkles in his style that not only is he young and hungry, and he probably has just plain speed advantages and maybe even power over Morales. I think that he's going to be able to turn him quicker. He's got quicker reflexes, certainly at this stage of the game. This could be the night that, Morales gets really old in our eyes. But again, the thing about him is that he has had these sort of miracle performances. I don't think this is an opponent he's going to be able to quite gut one out against. But, that's the thing about him, is that he surprises the hell out of you, and he certainly is a live underdog for, betting fans. But I'm going with Danny Garcia in this.
Danny has been a blue-chip guy since his pro debut. He's been with the right people. He's been on these big stage, so you can't say he's going to be a deer in headlights. He's been on the biggest shows on the undercards. He's been groomed for this fight. I think this opponent is perfect for him and Eric Morales. If Danny Garcia is smart, which I know he is, and he just boxes Morales, it doesn't have to be a thrilling fight of the year, but he'll come out as a winner. If he stands in front of Eric Morales is going to do what Eric Morales does. He'll knock him out, because that's what Morales does, and Morales takes a beat. And I just don't think Danny is going to be dumb enough, honestly, to stand in front of Eric Morales. But just like you said, Eric Morales has a knack of pulling stuff out, and we'll see what happens. There's a couple other good fights, and on the undercard, James Kirkland returns. He's back with Ann Wolfe. I spoke with Ann Wolfe, actually, over the weekend. She's very excited about James Kirkland. She's trying to get her daughter on that card as well. But he's fighting against Carlos Molina. This is a guy that you can't take lightly. We do know that Kirkland has been down. I mean, the guy's been down and out. I mean, I guess his Achilles heel would be a suspect chin. Is Carlos Molina a guy that can stop Kirkland before Kirkland stops him?
I don't know if he can stop him, but I think he can certainly give him some problems. I don't think we've seen Kirkland in there against anyone with the same sort of bag of tricks as a Carlos Molina. So this could be a really good card on Saturday night on HBO, because I think both of those fights of who you would consider, he's not I guess with the Garcia fight, even though it's Eric Morales, Garcia is probably the one who he might be a slight favorite. But I think Molina is definitely a very, very live underdog, because even though Kirkland has been a steamroller against some guys, I don't think he's going to have Alfredo Angulo style opponent in front of him at all in Carlos Molina. Carlos Molina can box, and he could give him some problems. And I think that that fight I'm looking forward to because if Kirkland does win, we're going to have to see a more complete Kirkland than we've seen thus far.
You know, a fight that's, I think, really, I mean, I like Garcia Morales, but I could see an easy blueprint for Garcia to win. I like James Kirkland against Molina, but again, I see a blueprint of where James Kirkland could come out and overpower Molina. But a fight that I'm not sure how it's going to go, and I think is really as close to being 50-50 as you possibly can get. And you got a big name in Zab Judah going up against a young kid in Vernon Paris. I don't know who to pick in this one. Who's Alex Pierpaoli picking?
You know, I'd like to go with Vernon Paris because one of my favorite fights of last year was Vernon Paris versus Tim Coleman. But as we saw last week, I'm not sure what that fight really meant because Coleman put up one of the biggest non-efforts of the year thus far on Friday night. After he got hit with that body shot, that was it. All the fight went out of him. So what does that mean about Vernon Paris? Was that win a significant win, like I thought it was at the time, or and where has he gone since then? I mean, is he training seriously? Because Coleman certainly doesn't seem like he was. So I don't know. You're right. I think that's a pick-em fight because Zab, we know, has looked good lately, but I think in some ways he hasn't fought someone young and potentially dangerous like Vernon Paris. But at the same time, it's Zab Judah, and sometimes he's streaky. And we'll never forget the Carlos Baldomir, where he just showed up thinking, oh, it's New York. I'm Zab Judah. I should have no problem with this. And then suddenly, boom, he dropped the decision. I don't know. It could be one of those fights that maybe you got to pick Zab Judah just to be safe. It is being held in Brooklyn, and maybe if the decision comes down to it, that might sway it in his favor if it's close.
I'm running down some of the picks, and I'm getting all this. I'm getting hammered here in the chat room, but I got one for you guys, and I know Alex is way up on this one because these are two household names. Grady Brewer against Frank Hiroshi Horta. Now, I'm going to be calling the action. Please watch the fight because I'm sitting here looking at this card, and I'm like, oh, this fight is great. And I'm not sure about how many fans are going to be there. I mean, it is in the middle of the Cherry Blossom Festival, and there are no local people on this card. But as far as a webcast, I think it's going to be entertaining. It's just going up against so many good fights this weekend. Any thoughts on that one?
I'll definitely try to check it out. But no, I really don't know anything about Horta. I've seen his record there on BoxRec, but it's a lot of European experience and all kinds of international experience. He's fought in Algeria, Morocco, but I don't know these guys who he's fought. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that looks. It'll be. Is it going on at the same time as the Judah fights, or what? Like 7-ish?
Yeah,
Saturday night.
It starts at 7. It starts at 7, so you can catch it on LDL TV. Two other fights before I let you go. Actually, three quick ones here. Hernan Marquez and Rodel Mayo. These guys are going to be fighting for the third time. It's for a world title. I love this matchup. You have a quick pick on that one?
I would have to say Hernan Marquez. I think Rodel Mayo, I think his best days are behind him. He still can hit pretty hard. But Hernan Marquez, if I'm remembering correctly, he had the 2 wins over Concepcion in one was like arguably one of the fights of the year last year. Isn't that right?
What? Who? Which fight?
Hernan Marquez.
Yeah. Marquez, excuse me, he's the little, they call him Little Tyson, Tyson.
Little Tyson, that's right.
I think that he's, I love watching him fight. He did have a knockout of the year. Wasn't it a knockout of the year? What do you said? You thought it was the fight of the year?
Could be, yeah, the Adrian Dapudong fight. Yeah, because he fought Luis Concepcion, and he had that was an awesome fight in April, and then he fought him again in October and stopped him in a round. But the first fight was real competitive.
Right. Yeah, well, this is the third. It's another one that's going to be competitive. Takalani Nadoluv against Jeffrey Mathubula, another one that I think is going to be a 50-50 fight. Do you have a pick in that one?
You know, I've never seen either one of those guys fight, but I see them every week in the rankings, you know. So that's one of those fights I'd love to be able to watch. And I'm curious as to what's going to happen, and what happens will have significance in that division. But unfortunately, that's one of those situations where, you could be a fan, you could be a major fan of the sport, and there's just some guys who, because unless you have a satellite dish, it's just hard to get to see these guys live, unless you're willing to go into some of the nether regions of the internet. And I'm so afraid of viruses, I don't tend to do that.
I hear you. It's like you got to have a system dedicated for that and say, go kill this one if you have to. Just leave all my other stuff. Hey, another one real quick I wanted to get to, and then we got to let you go for real. Sergey Lukajevic is taking on the young Bryant Jennings. Now, Bryant Jennings had to step up and become the main event on the NBC Sports event. Do you think his Cinderella story ends against Lukajevic?
I don't know. I mean, I think if he could beat that guy, that's a nice win to get under his belt. And it was heavyweights that got me back into this sport, all those years ago. So I've always got a soft spot for them. So I'd love to see Jennings, win and win big. And I think that would be a significant win. And I remember the last time the heavyweights fought on that NBC sports show. I enjoyed the bout. I thought it was a pretty, it wasn't a barn burner, but I thought it was intriguing. So I'm glad that they're doing heavies again, even though, sometimes that could be a big mistake.
Well, the thing is the Jennings fight when he fought Freight Train.
Was it Maurice Byram?
Yeah. They call him Freight Train Byram or something like that. But I was noticing in that fight that he was small and he had good hands. But he reminded me of and I'm not going to say this is talent level, but like an Ezra Charles or even a Vander Holyfield when he first started out. He was small. He was a lot of muscle tone. He had quick hands. His experience level was limited. But he was fighting against a guy with the same experience level that had slow hands and wasn't as big as Lukajevic. Lukajevic, I'm not saying he's a world beater, but I agree with what you said. If Jennings gets past Lukajevic, he is going to be probably thrown in with the Wolves more than the White Wolf. He's obviously being thrown in with the White Wolf this weekend, but we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, heavyweights, baby. If we can get a couple of heavyweights willing to fight each other, that's why I think they're being too hard on Derek Chisora. I mean, I know he's a whack job and everything else, but we need him. We need a guy that's got a little bit of talent that's not afraid to fight people, and that's like him, And they're being hard on JuanMa too. They got to give JuanMa a break. The guy had scrambled eggs for his brains after that fight. They should have never put him on the spot.
Yeah, I wonder about that, of why there was that. Unless maybe that's why is that they might relent on that suspension, and that's why there was that second public apology there yesterday. At least I hope that's the case, that they end up changing their minds on that, because I think that it's one thing to make him apologize in public, but the suspension was way excessive. Because come on, he didn't. He doesn't even remember saying what he said.
I know.
So, it's not surprising.
And the thing is that Ramirez, the referee, wanted it on a large scale. He did apologize immediately after the fight, but that wasn't good enough. So they arranged this whole press thing to be in front of the media so that there would be footage and reports on it and blah, 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 blah. And he doesn't show up to it. And I don't want to say that the kid was right or wrong. I just think that it was very unfortunate that we stuck a mic in front of him in lieu of the fact that he clearly didn't have his faculties together. And I
think one of your listeners, I think, had a good point. that some of that responsibility does go to Jim Gray.
Yeah.
Is that he could have tried to steer that conversation away from what he was saying, and he did, and he's shown that he does, exercise that kind of discrimination in the with what's it called, Chris Areola, when he used the F word. He was more than willing to pull the mic away.
Right.
Well, it's showtime, I mean, I could handle a couple of swears. It's not going to offend me. Give me a break.
Well, the thing about Jim Gray and what the listeners said was that he shouldn't be the guy that's deciding who gets censored and who doesn't. And it was like he was putting the burden on himself. If I'm Showtime, I say the guy was knocked out. I think we need to follow what England does. When a guy gets knocked out, don't go to him for an interview. End of story. Yeah. I think we owe that to the fighter, especially in lieu of the issues that you have after your body's been knocked out. But anyway, Alex, I appreciate you coming back at a second's notice to fill in for the infamous Joe Santoliquito. And hey, we had some fun, man. Maybe especially with this phone connection. Maybe if it continues like this. We'll have you. You got to come up, man. You got to do the show here with me one time. But let's talk about that. But anyway, I got to go. I got to get these trivia questions out. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you next week.
All right, take care, Billy C.
All right, take care. That's my man Alex Pierpaoli filling in a void for yours truly today.
Wake up. It's time for the It's Too Early for a Trivia Question.
All right, we got a great prize on the line right now. We got the copy of the Title Bout Championship computer game. If you know who fought the most fights between 1910 and 1919, who fought the most fights between 1910 and 1919, if you know the answer, email me the correct answer, Billy@TalkinBoxing. That's TalkinBoxing.com.
This day in boxing history.
And finally, this day in boxing history is being brought to us by Campanaro Tomkovich. If you need a lawyer, you might as well use the ones that keep me out of trouble. That's Campanaro Tomkovich. Give them a call, 845-221-4099, and tell them Billy C said, I'll pick up the consultation fee. On this day, March 21st, back in 1997, Montel Griffin wins by a 9th round disqualification over Roy Jones Jr. To win the WBC World Light Heavyweight title. A little asterisk there. A couple months later, on August 7th in 1997, 5 months later to be exact, Roy Jones Jr. avenges that loss with a first-round knockout to get his WBC World Light Heavyweight title back. So FYI for you there. One important thing I need to tell you. Make sure you tune in tomorrow morning, same bad time, same bad channel. There's only one channel, the Fight Now channel. Call your local television provider right now and tell them you want the Fight Now channel added to your sports channel lineup. It's that simple. For all the information about the channel, visit their website, www.fightnow.com. See you all tomorrow. Ciao, baby.